Elaine from the library. Long time no see. Nice to be back. And I want to do a couple stories with you today, like we used to do in story time. I have two stories I want to read to you. The first one's kind of long, but the second one's really short. And then we have a little activity we can do after that, okay? So let's get started. But before I start the stories, I wanted to tell you, if you haven't already checked out our website or our Facebook page and found information about joining our summer reading program, I hope you do that. We have a summer reading program called Imagine Your Story. And the stories I'm going to read to you today kind of use your imagination because they're like fairy tales. And that's what a lot of our summer reading program is about this year, about fairy tales and just stories that you might make up. So we'll talk a little more later about maybe you making up your very own story. Wouldn't that be fun? But to join the reading program, you have to go to our website or to our Facebook page, and you'll see a link to it there. And it tells you to go to this website, luzernlibraries.readsquared.com. And when you get there, it'll tell you a place to sign up for the reading program. And here it is here. I'll just leave it there for a few minutes so you can see it. If you just put that in the address bar, luzernlibraries.readsquared.com, or as I say, if you go to our website or our Facebook page, you will see links to it, and you can click there. And there's even an app you can download to your phone if you like. And you'll be keeping track of minutes that you read. You can even count the minutes that you spend listening to the stories today. So minutes that you read, and each time you read a certain amount of minutes, you log them in, and eventually it opens up little games on the computer that you can play, and you'll earn badges, which then you can get some prizes too. So I'll tell you more about that later, and you'll see a little more information on the website. Okay, so luzernlibraries.readsquared.com. That gets you in. Okay. Alrighty, let's get started with our story. Now, our summer reading program is about Imagine Your Story. And the fairy tale we're going to start with has to do with this little cat that I'm wearing on my shirt. You notice this cat, he's wearing a fancy hat, he's carrying some books. He must be a good reader. And he's wearing boots. You know what his name is? Some of you might know. His name is Puss in Boots because he's a push cat and he's in boots. And if you don't know this cat, you may have seen him in a rather famous movie that came out a while ago called Shrek 2. Anybody ever see that movie? And if you did, do you happen to remember this kitty? There's Puss in Boots, the very same cat we're going to read about. He was in Shrek 2. So, that's who Puss in Boots is, and this is the book we're going to read called Puss in Boots. This one's got nice red boots, fancy looking ones. Let's see why this cat is wearing boots. Well, it all started many, many years ago. Once upon a time, there lived a miller. Do you know what a miller is? Well, I know some people whose last name is Miller, but a miller is also a job. And it's a job where a farmer kind of works and takes flour and turns it into, doesn't take flour, takes wheat. There's a stick of wheat there. Wheat, and it grinds it up and makes it into flour, and then it can be used to bake bread and cakes and cookies and all kinds of good things. So that's what a miller does. And that's what he did. But he's gotten so old, he said he just can't work anymore. He has 3 sons, and he decides he's going to divide up his property among the 3 sons. So to the oldest son, he gives him the mill. This is the mill that they use to grind the wheat into flour. This is a donkey. He gave that to the second son. The donkey is very helpful on the farm. And to the youngest son, he left his cat, Puss. Well, the youngest son said, "What am I going to do with this cat? My brothers can use the mill and the donkey to work together. But how can I ever earn a living with just a cat?" You probably know cats don't work very much. But this was a special cat. Puss was very clever, and he could understand what people said. And not only could he understand what they said, but this cat could talk. And Puss said, "Cheer up. Have a pair of boots made for me so that I can run through the sharp brambles and then get me a sack with a cord, and if you do this, you will never be unhappy again." It's kind of a strange request, isn't it, for a cat? He wants boots, and sure enough, the youngest son had some boots made for Puss, and he got him in the sack with the cord. And after he did that, even though he was a little surprised to hear that cat talking, Puss learned to run in his boots, and he went to the bramble patch where many wild rabbits lived. You see all these bunnies running around there. And into that sack, he put some cabbage leaves, he put some parsley, and 2 carrots, things that bunnies like to eat. Then he hid behind a tree and he waited, and it wasn't long before a foolish young rabbit came up to the sack, peeked inside, and saw those goodies, climbed into the sack, and that's when Puss pulled the cord, slung the sack over his shoulder, and he went off to the castle of the king. There's the king. There's some of his men. And Puss knocked at the door. Out came the king with his guards. "How do you do, your majesty?" said Puss. "My master, the Marquis of Carabas, sends this rabbit to you." "Well, I have never heard of the Marquis of Carabas," said the king, "but I am very fond of fresh game, so I will gladly accept the present." So Puss made up a special title for the youngest son. Instead of just saying he was, some kid sending him this rabbit, he called him the Marquis of Carabas. Now, a marquis is kind of a special title. It's not quite as important as a king, but it is an important person. So when the king heard that, he said, "Sure, I'll accept his gift." Okay, so the next day, Puss went off to the wheat field. He filled a sack with golden grain. He hid in the high grass, and he made the sound of a partridge. You know what a partridge is? It's a kind of bird. So he made this little sound. And it wasn't long before some foolish partridges heard the call and ran into the sack. He pulled the cord tight, hurried to the king's castle, and said, "Good day, your majesty. The Marquis of Carabas hopes that you will enjoy these birds on your dinner table." "Well, they are indeed fine birds," said the king. He smacked his lips. He said to his guards, "See that the cook prepares these at once." So now he's given them 2 partridges. Yesterday he gave him a rabbit. And on the 3rd morning, Puss caught 2 large trout, 2 fish, and brought them to the king too. "Here is another gift from my lord, the Marquis of Carabas," said Puss. The king was very pleased. He patted his round belly and said, "The Marquis must be a fine person to send me all these tasty treats." Well, as Puss was leaving, he heard 2 of the king's coachmen talking and said, "The king has ordered that we ready his coach for a ride along the river today, and he will be taking his daughter, the princess, with him." Oh, so Puss overheard them saying the king's going to be riding by the river and bringing along his daughter, the princess. Puss ran all the way from the king's castle to the youngest son's house. "Master," he cried, "today your fortune will be made. All you must do is go for a swim in the river and leave the rest to me." What is he planning? So the miller's son did as Puss told him. He went to the river, took off his clothes, jumped in the water, and while he practiced floating, Puss hid his ragged old clothes behind a tree stump. Now, no sooner had Puss done that than the king's coach drove up. "Help, help," Puss yelled as he ran to the road. "The Marquis of Carabas has been robbed." Oh, no. When the king heard this, he stuck his head out of the window and said, "Stop the coach," he ordered. He recognized Puss, and he remembered the many fine gifts that the Marquis of Carabas had sent to him. "Your Majesty, someone has stolen my master's clothes," said Puss. "Footman," said the king, "run back to the castle and fetch one of my best suits for the Marquis of Carabas." The miller's son was very surprised. "Who's the Marquis of Carabas?" he whispered to Puss. "I have told the king that you are the Marquis," Puss whispered back to him. So this is the first the son has learned that he is being called now the Marquis of Carabas. Well, the miller's son dressed in the rich suit of clothes, and indeed he looked splendid as any marquis. "Now you must thank the king," said Puss. "Leave the rest to me, and your fortune will soon be made." So there he is now riding in the coach with the king and the princess, his daughter. The miller's son thanked the king politely for the new clothes. "You are most welcome," said the king. Now would you please join us for a ride in the coach?" The miller's son sat next to the princess, who was happy to see such a handsome young man. Puss ran ahead to a field where some haymakers were working. "Haymakers," said Puss in a fierce voice, "when the king drives past and asks to whom this field belongs, you must say it belongs to the Marquis of Carabas. If you don't, I shall chop you into mincemeat." Oh my goodness, that's quite a threat from a cat. Well, soon the king passed by in his coach. "To whom does this fine hayfield belong?" he asked. "Why, it belongs to our lord the Marquis of Carabas," said the haymakers, for they had been greatly frightened by Puss. So they said what he told them to say. Then Puss ran on till he came to a field where some reapers were working. "Reapers," said Puss in an even fiercer voice than before, "when the king drives past and asks to whom this field belongs, you must reply, to the Marquis of Carabas. If you don't, I shall chop you into mincemeat." That little cat. Well, pretty soon the king passed by in his coach. "To whom does this fine field of grain belong?" he asked. "Why, it belongs to our lord the Marquis of Carabas," replied the reapers, for they too had been greatly frightened by Puss. "You have very fine land," the king said to the miller's son. The young man saw that what Puss was up to, so he said nothing, but he smiled at the princess, and she smiled back at him. Puss ran as hard as his boots could carry him till he came to a great castle. Wow, there he goes. There's the castle. And who lives in the castle? Uh-oh. The castle belonged to a wicked old giant. The giant owned all the land the king had just passed by, and for years he had forced the haymakers and the reapers to work for him. Puss had heard that the giant also possessed the powers of a magician. So he's not just an ordinary giant. "What do you want?" the giant roared when he saw it was only a cat who had disturbed him. "Well, I couldn't pass this way," Puss said, "without paying respect to the most famous of magicians." This greatly pleased the giant, so he let Puss come in. "Is it really true that you can change yourself into a lion or an elephant or anything you choose?" asked Puss. "Oh, yes, I can change into many animals," grinned the giant. And then, boom, a loud clap of thunder echoed through the castle, and there stood an elephant. "Well, amazing," said Puss, who stood out of the way of that big swinging trunk. He looks a little nervous there. Suddenly, the elephant roared, and there stood a lion. "Oh my goodness, how fantastic," said Puss, though he was really very much afraid. "It must be easy for you to turn into something large," he said, "but can you turn into something very small?" "Why, yes," roared the lion, and in an instant a little mouse scurried across the floor. Well, that was just what Puss had been waiting for. With one pounce he catched the mouse, and that was the end of the old giant. Oh, that's what he wanted him to do, turn into a mouse so he could grab him. By and by, the king's coach arrived at the giant's castle. "Welcome to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas," Puss announced with a bow. "Does this beautiful castle belong to you too, Marquis?" asked the king. He was greatly impressed. He has all that land and that castle. Wow. Puss brought them into the dining hall. There was a great feast that had been prepared by the servants, who were much happier obeying Puss than that wicked giant that they worked for. The king was very pleased with the handsome young marquis and his castle and his land. "You may ask my daughter to marry you, since you both seem to be so fond of each other." The princess agreed, and they had the wedding that very afternoon. Wow, that was fast. There was a great celebration that lasted long into the night, and Puss, wearing his red leather boots, led all of the dances. "Thank you for all your help," the miller's son told Puss when the merriment was finally over. The next day, they had a very special throne made just for Puss, and they all lived happily ever after together in the castle. And there's Puss, and the special throne has like a cat face on the bottom, And you see a little cat on the top. Can you see it? And two fishies. And even his pillows have fish and mice on them. Things that cats like, right? So that's the story of Puss in Boots. And this version I read, there's a lot of different copies of. This is illustrated by Paul Galdone. He illustrates a lot of great fairy tales. So that's Puss in Boots. You can check it out sometime at the library if you like. And as I said, we do have one more quick story to read. This one's much shorter. That's kind of a long one. And then we have a little activity to do to tie in with this story. So maybe some of you have heard stories before about Fly Guy. Do you know Fly Guy? There's a whole series of books about him. The one we're going to read today ties in with our fairy tale theme. It's called Prince Fly Guy. And all the Fly Guy books are written by Ted Arnold. So here we see he's wearing a crown, so he is a prince. Let me just get something else I want to show you in just a minute. If I'm going to get everything together here. Okay, we're ready. Let's see. Prince Fly Guy. How does he get to be a prince? Well, a boy had a pet fly, and he named him Fly Guy. And Fly Guy could say the boy's name. Wow, that's amazing. We just saw a cat that could talk. Now we have a fly that could talk. But you know why he says the boy's name? Because what is the boy's name? His name is Buzz. Did you ever know anybody named Buzz? Maybe you do. Well, I can think of two Buzzes that I don't really know them, but I've heard of them. And before we read any further, let's quickly talk about those two Buzzes that I know. The one, I think all of you might know. If you've ever seen a movie called Toy Story, you know who this Buzz is? Buzz Lightyear, right? Yeah, sure, you do that. Well, did you know that that Buzz was named after a real-life Buzz? And the real-life Buzz he was named for was a famous, and still is alive, a famous astronaut named Buzz Aldrin. And there's the two Buzzes together, Buzz Lightyear and Buzz Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin was one of the first men to walk on the moon. Imagine that. He walked on the moon. Long time ago. In fact, they just had an anniversary of it. It was just July. Oh boy, I hope I get the date right. It's around the 20th. But it happened back in 1969, many, many years ago. And Buzz, in this picture is, let's see, this is Neil Armstrong. He was the first man to walk on the moon. This is Buzz back in 1969 when he was an astronaut. And the man in the middle was, oh boy, last name is Collins. I have to look it up. Oh, it's been so long. He didn't get to walk on the moon. He stayed in the ship. But Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon right after Neil Armstrong. He was the first one, and then Buzz got to walk on the moon. So that's a real famous Buzz. And here he is today. He's over 90 years old. But there he is with Buzz Lightyear and Buzz Aldrin. Okay, those are all the Buzzes. Now let's get back to our Buzzes in the story. Chapter 1. One night Buzz said, "I have homework to do. I have to write a fairy tale. Can you help me, Fly Guy?" And Fly Guy says, "Yes." "Well," said Buzz, "how does this sound? Once upon a time," and Fly Guy's picturing a little castle and things and said, "Yes." Sounds good. "Okay," said Buzz, "once upon a time there was an ugly troll." I don't think he likes the idea. You don't like that? Okay. What about a smelly pig herder? He's not too sure about that one either. No, well, what about a handsome prince? And to that, Buzz says, yes. Fly Guy says, yes. "Okay," said Buzz, "the handsome prince walked to the castle." Walk to the castle? That's a lot of work. "Maybe instead of walking," said Buzz, "what if he rode to the castle?" "Oh, it's kind of hard for that fly to hold on right to that horse one." No, I've got it. "He flew to the dark castle." "Oh, yes," says Buzz. Good idea. He likes the idea of flying because he's a fly. Chapter 2. At the dark castle, said Buzz, the handsome prince ate cold porridge. "Yuck," said Fly Guy. He doesn't like that idea. "What if he kissed a frog?" Smack. "Gross," said Fly Guy. I've got it. He rescued a beautiful princess. Yes, said Fly Guy. But a great giant lived in the dark castle, just like our last book had a big giant. Yikes, said Fly Guy. Chapter 3. The giant chased the handsome prince and the beautiful princess. Oh dear, he's chasing them. There they are, flying away as fast as they can. He knocked them down to the ground. Swat! With his fly swatter. Oh, the princess threw her crown and hit the giant on the nose. Bonk! Yes, says Fly Guy. The giant fell down. Do you see what's right under? I don't know if you can see it. Right under where he's falling is the crown that she threw at him. Oh, yes, says Fly Guy. Ouch, 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 says the giant. He's got the crown stuck in his bottom. Oh, my goodness, that's got to hurt. So he ran away, screaming all the way. But now, there goes the princess's crown. So the prince and the princess flew home, and they made matching crowns. So now they have new crowns. And to that, Fly Guy says, nice. He likes that idea. And they lived happily ever after in a nice little castle. Aw, said Fly Guy. A happy ending to kind of a scary story. The end, said Buzz. I like my fairy tale, said Buzz. Hey, want to write another one? Oh, yes, says Fly Guy. Let's write our story. Okay, once there was a hairy dwarf. Do you think he likes the idea? He doesn't look too happy with that. But that's how stories start. You come up with an idea. If it doesn't work, you change it, add to it. Why won't some of you try writing your own fairy tale? I bet you could do as good a job as Buzz did with this one. Think about who's going to be in your fairy tale and what they're going to do, what kind of interesting things might happen to them, adventures, and how it's going to end. And you could write your own story. So think about doing that. Maybe you could even share it with us through our website. I don't know. Check it out. Okay, I said we'd do a quick activity, and we will. I want to show you how to make yourself. Remember, at the end of the story, they made crowns, matching crowns. You can make a crown. I made this one. It's not beautiful, but it's not too bad. And it almost fits my head. Not quite, because I have a big head. But I'll show you how to do it. All you do is take a paper plate, right? Fold it in half. It's better if you have these kind of cheap plates that are kind of thin. They're easier to fold and cut, because some plates are kind of heavy. But if you don't, work with what you got. Okay, so we folded it in half, and that's how this one started out. I'll show you. Let's just go back to where we originally folded it, like this. Oh, sort of like that. Let me see if I can get it to fold in the right spot. Okay, anyway, so we fold it. And then you see it's got all these cuts in it. That's the points for the crown. And to do that, all you do, and remember, very important, don't cut all the way through or you won't have, it'll fall apart. Cut up to where the design starts, the little ridges there, and just start in the middle. You can kind of figure out where the middle is. Get some help from mom or dad for this, for an adult. Cut, stop right when you get to there. Okay, so we cut that in half. Now, what if we folded it? No, let's not do that. Let's go right from here. Start at the bottom of that last point, okay? And we're going to cut over this way. Stop at the design, and the same thing here. Start at the bottom of this point. Oh, there we. This point here. Start there and cut right up to the design. Okay, we didn't cut through the whole thing. Now we have one little problem. This side here. So we can here just get hold of it and right on the fold that's there. Oh, can you see what I'm doing? I'm sorry. Right on that fold. Cut that so we have 2 more points, and the same thing on this side where it didn't cut through before. Just cut right down the fold. Oops, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Close enough. All right, so that's going to be your crown. And actually, before you fold them all up, because that's what you're going to have to do, fold them all. That looks like cat ears, doesn't it? I'm going to make a pussycat hat. But we're going to make a crown today. Before you do that, make sure you add some decorations. Color it, polka dots, pick your favorite color, however you want to do it. Put little dots at the top. And we even have stickers. You might want to put some stickers on if you have. We have some fairy tale stickers and some bigger ones too. So you decorate it any way you want, and you make yourself a nice little crown to wear, okay? And if you don't have a paper plate, if you have any newspaper lying around your house, I took just a piece of newspaper, I folded it up a little bit, and cut some points out, just like a crown should have. And again, you don't cut all the way through. I folded this in half. It's like two sheets of paper, just to make it, I think I did. Now I can't get it apart. Yes, I did. Okay, so it is folded in half, see? So I folded it and then cut out that, and then I decorated it. Again, put some colors, drew some squiggles on the bottom, nothing fancy. And then you can tape it to fit your head. And that makes a cool crown too. If you have funny papers at home from a Sunday paper, you can do the same thing there. Cut out a strip about the right size for a crown. Cut some triangles in it. And then you don't even have to color it if it's already decorated. But you could add some of your own things to make it special. Okay. I have a little song we can do with our crowns. I know you probably don't have your crown yet, but it's easy to remember. So if you don't have a crown now and you make one later, you can remember this song. It's called Put Your Crown on Your Head. And it goes to the tune of a tune I think everybody knows, If You're Happy and You Know It. Okay? Yeah, it goes to that song. And it goes like this. Put your crown on your head, on your head. Put your crown on your head, on your head. Put your crown on your head until it's time for bed. Put your crown on your head, on your head. Now, what happens when it's time for bed? We don't wear a crown to bed, do we? No, I don't think so. So, when it's time for bed, we take your crown off your head, off your head. Take your crown off your head, off your head. Take your crown off your head, because now it's time for bed. Take your crown off your head, and put it away until tomorrow when you wake up, and then you'll put your crown on your head, on your head. Okay, we're not going to go through it again. You see how it goes. So you can do that yourself. Now, one more thing I'll tell you, and then it's time to go, because I've been talking too much. If you don't have a paper plate at home, we're going to put together a kit you can pick up at the library. You can get a nice bag with our friend Puss in Boots on it. And in the bag, we'll put a couple paper plates. We'll put some stickers for you to decorate your plate. You'll have to have your own markers or crayons at home to do the coloring. But we'll put those in and maybe a few other things for you. And you can pick it up at the library. You can stop by. We have curbside pickup, which means you have to call ahead and let us know you're coming. And we'll have everything ready and waiting for you. You can go to our website for more information on it, picking up things at the library. We're not open for you to come in yet, but you can come and pick things up. You can call, ask for books if you want books like the books we read today or any other books. We'll get them together for you. Give us a little time and set up a time to pick up, and you have to come at that time. You call us at 570-823-0156. That's our phone number. And you can come pick up some things and tell us if you want a packet like you saw in story time. You can come and get that too at the library. Okay? So I hope we'll see some of you stopping by for our contactless pickup, where you can pick up books, movies, and a packet of crafts if you want for today's story time. Okay? Hope to see you stopping by. And thanks for listening. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.